Hello, and welcome back to the Out There Pod, where we delve into the depths of the unexplained, the mysterious, and the downright bizarre. I'm Rachel, and joining me today is my co host, Michael. How are you doing, Michael?
Hi, Rachel. I'm doing fantastic, thanks. Today's topic is especially intriguing and a bit unsettling, so I'm eager to dive into it.
That's right. Today, we are talking about alien abductions. During the 20th century, there seems to have been a lot more activity in terms of close encounters of the fourth kind than before or after.
Absolutely. The mid 20th century, particularly from the 1960s to the 1980s, saw a significant rise in reported alien abduction cases. This period gave us some of the most well documented and widely discussed abduction stories, sparking intense public interest and debate. It's fascinating to consider why this surge happened during that time and what it might tell us about the phenomenon.
The way I see it, there are two camps for explaining this phenomenon. In the one camp, skeptics say that the reason for the intense public interest in extraterrestrials is that television and film during the 60s and 70s were beginning to explore the idea of extraterrestrials in science fiction. The other camp would say that it is our technological advancement in the last 200 years that has prompted visits from extraterrestrials. Either they couldn't see us before, or they had classified us similar to Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, mostly harmless. Where do you fall?
That's a great way to frame it. I think both perspectives have merit. The influence of television and film on public perception can't be underestimated. It certainly popularized the idea of extraterrestrials and might have shaped people's experiences and interpretations of unusual events. On the other hand, our rapid technological advancement could have attracted the attention of extraterrestrial civilizations. Personally, I'm open to both possibilities. It's likely a combination of cultural influence and genuine phenomena that led to the increase in reported alien abductions during that period.
I agree. I think that it is easy to find instances where a supposed alien abduction was actually a hoax or even a hallucination, whether from drug use or mental illness. Skeptics latch onto these hoaxes to say that all stories of alien encounters can be explained. But the truth may not be so black and white. Whether they were visited by extraterrestrials, superterrestrials, or something else, there have absolutely been strange, unexplained encounters around the world.
There are numerous accounts that defy easy explanation. These stories come from credible witnesses with no apparent motive to fabricate their experiences. The consistency of certain details across different reports also adds a layer of intrigue. It suggests that there might be more to these encounters than mere fiction or misinterpretation.
Let's start with the Hill abduction story. Set the scene for our listeners, Michael.
Of course. The Hill abduction is one of the most famous and well-documented cases of alleged alien abduction. It occurred in 1961 when Betty and Barney Hill were driving home to New Hampshire from a vacation in Canada. Late at night, on a rural road, they noticed a strange, bright light in the sky that seemed to be following them. As the light got closer, they decided to stop and get a better look, and that's when things took a bizarre turn.
Was the vessel that they saw a flying saucer?
Yes, according to their accounts, the vessel they saw was indeed a flying saucer. Betty described it as a large, silent craft with multicolored lights. As it descended closer to them, they could make out distinct details, including windows and figures inside. This encounter is what led to their subsequent claims of abduction and the detailed descriptions they later provided under hypnosis.
So they remembered seeing the lights and the beings that were coming down. That would be such a wild experience. But they see a saucer-shaped object coming down towards them, and then what? A door opened up and they just walked on board? Did either of them remember how they got on board the flying saucer?
That's a crucial part of their story. Initially, they had no conscious memory of how they got on board. It was only later through hypnosis that they recalled more details. Both Betty and Barney described feeling a compulsion to drive off the main road and then experiencing a sort of altered state. They remembered seeing humanoid figures who escorted them onto the craft.
I do remember reading that they were able to remember more about the abduction through hypnosis. We'll talk more about that. But through that method, they were able to describe features of the humanoid figures that, if believed, definitely were not human, right?
That's correct. Under hypnosis, both Betty and Barney provided detailed descriptions of the beings they encountered. They described the humanoids as having large, bald heads, large wraparound eyes, and small, narrow mouths. Their skin was a grayish color, and they had very thin, spindly bodies. These descriptions are eerily consistent with what many now refer to as the classic gray aliens. The consistency and specificity of their accounts are part of what makes the Hill abduction story so compelling and hard to dismiss outright.
That's a good point about the consistency in the descriptions. In the modern technological world in which we live, we assume that anyone who makes a claim about seeing aliens has seen all of the videos online of other people making the same claim. We figure that they are stealing the details to make the story seem more credible. Before the internet, it was much more reasonable to think that some of these reports were made completely independent of one another.
Exactly. Back in the 1960s, there wasn't the same level of information exchange that we have today. The Hill's detailed and consistent descriptions of the beings they encountered are all the more remarkable because they couldn't easily have accessed other accounts to shape their own story.
Another consistent detail is loss of time. How much time did Betty Hill claim to have lost during the Hill abduction?
Betty and Barney Hill reported a period of about 2 hours of lost time during their abduction. They had a vague sense of something strange happening, but they couldn't account for those missing hours. This phenomenon, often referred to as missing time, is a common feature in many abduction stories.
Now, let's compare the Betty Hill abduction with the Travis Walton UFO encounter. Skipping forward 14 years to 1975, an Arizona logger named Travis Walton was abducted from the woods in front of 3 witnesses. What similarities do we see between these 2 encounters? Travis reported missing time as well, right?
That's correct. Travis Walton's abduction shares some striking similarities with the Hill abduction. Like the Hills, Walton reported a period of missing time during his encounter. After disappearing for 5 days, Walton claimed to have no memory of what happened during that time, only to later recall being on board a UFO and interacting with non-human entities.
Did Travis Walton ever describe the non-human entities that he saw in 1975? Were they the same as the humanoid figures or gray aliens seen by Betty Hill?
Travis Walton did provide descriptions of the entities he encountered during his abduction. He described them as humanoid in appearance, with large, hairless heads and large, dark eyes. While there are similarities between Walton's descriptions and those provided by Betty Hill, there are also some differences. For example, Walton's beings were reportedly taller and had more humanoid features, whereas Hill described shorter, more spindly beings with smaller mouths. Despite these variations, the overarching theme of encountering non-human entities remains consistent across both cases.
Well, we know that the government, using different projects, operations, and agencies, has investigated sightings like this for decades. What is the official position on the Hill and Walton abductions?
The official position on the Hill and Walton abductions, as with many alleged UFO encounters, is somewhat ambiguous. While the government has investigated such sightings through projects like Project Blue Book and agencies like the CIA, their conclusions have often been inconclusive or classified. In the case of the Hill and Walton abductions specifically, there hasn't been an official declaration or acknowledgement from the government regarding the veracity of their claims.
It is interesting that projects like Project Stargate have been made public, while information about UFO investigations is kept secret. Shouldn't any information the government has on an investigation from 1961 or even 1975 be available in the public record because of the Freedom of Information Act?
You raise a valid point. The discrepancy in transparency between projects like Project Stargate and investigations into UFO sightings is indeed intriguing. While some information about UFO investigations has been released under the Freedom of Information Act, FOIA, much of it remains heavily redacted or classified. This lack of transparency has fueled speculation and conspiracy theories about what the government might be hiding regarding UFO encounters.
Well, whether it is aliens from a distant star, beings from another reality, or some undiscovered, technologically advanced civilization living right here on, or in, the Earth, it seems that there is something out there that the government doesn't want us to know about.
Absolutely. The veil of secrecy surrounding UFO encounters and alleged alien abductions suggests that there may indeed be something significant that the government is keeping hidden from the public.
Let's look back at the facts of the encounters before we end for the week. Both encounters were corroborated by multiple witnesses who were neither on drugs nor suffering from any known psychological trauma. Both the Hills and Travis Walton were taken into a saucer with human-like beings that had large eyes. And both the Hills and Travis lost time, although Travis lost significantly more time than the Hills. But what about how they remembered the information? Do you think that the Hills remembering details under hypnosis adds to or detracts from the credibility of their story?
That's an important aspect to consider. While hypnosis can sometimes help individuals recall forgotten details, it's also been criticized for potentially leading to false memories or confabulation. In the case of the Hills, their memories under hypnosis were remarkably consistent with each other and with the details they provided before undergoing hypnosis. However, skeptics argue that the influence of hypnosis may have distorted their recollections or led them to embellish their experiences. Ultimately, whether hypnosis adds to or detracts from the credibility of their story is open to interpretation and further investigation.
And it's this elusive quest for truth that drives our fascination with extraterrestrials and other mysteries of the unknown. As we continue to sift through the evidence and unravel the tangled web of speculation and intrigue, one thing remains certain: the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered.
Well said, Rachel. And with that, we'll wrap up today's discussion. We hope you've enjoyed listening, and as always, we encourage you to keep questioning, exploring, and keeping an open mind.
That's right. And if you have any thoughts or experiences related to advanced technology or conspiracy theories you'd like to share, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious and don't believe everything you see. Goodbye for now.